Welcome, visitor, to Thermopylae. My name is Leonidas. I am a king of Sparta. But do not think me some idle aristocrat softened by luxury. When Spartans go to war, I stand alongside them shield to shield, and my spear tastes the same blood as those of my men. Thermopylae stirs many feelings in my heart. Rage at the Persians' arrogance. Regret that I could not do more. But mostly, I feel proud. Proud of my city, and of my men, who fought to protect the very soul of the Spartan people. For those few fateful days, they were my brothers. I miss them all. Thermopylae was where a courageous group of Spartans stood amongst other Greek soldiers and held off the forces of King Xerxes, the Persian. When you're done, find me and we'll speak more.
The Persian king Darius was humiliated after the defeat at Marathon. Even after his death, Darius's son Xerxes continued to seek vengeance against the Greeks. Greek spies brought news of the upcoming invasion back to Greece. Many discussions were made on how to place the best mount for defence. In the end, the Greeks decided on Thermopylae, a narrow pass that could act like a bottleneck for the Persian army, making their large numbers useless. 5,000 Greeks set up a fort near the entrance to the narrow passage, known as the Hot Gates. Leading them was Leonidas, one of the kings of Sparta. He was accompanied by several elite soldiers who, together, made up the famous 300 Spartans. In the summer of 480 BCE, the Persian army arrived. It was claimed that the army was so large and strong, it consumed 6,000 tons of wheat daily, and that rivers dried up because of their thirst. During their march to Thermopylae, the Persian numbers increased as they recruited from other Greek cities that they had defeated. The last count of the Persian fleet was thought to be 1,207 boats, which were mounted by 240,000 men, with the soldiers on land estimated to be over 1 million. The Greeks were hugely outnumbered. Xerxes thought that the sight of the vast Persian army would cause the 5,000 Greek soldiers to flee in terror. However, they deliberated the best form of attack, with the majority of the Greek soldiers wanting to move to Corinth and King Leonidas wanting to stay at Thermopylae. A Persian spy returned and told Xerxes surprising news. The Greeks were not only not fleeing, but were exercising at the fort and combing their hair, a far cry from the terror the Persians thought they had caused. Xerxes decided to wait 4 days and then attack the Greeks on the 5th day. The Persians faced resistance and suffered many losses, with the following day being just as difficult for them as the Greeks continued to hold their ground. It seemed as though the Persians would not win the Battle of Thermopylae. However, a local from the area came forward and told the Persians of another way around the narrow pass. The Persians quickly checked this information and moved into position. This meant that, on the 3rd day of battle, the Greeks were suddenly surrounded by their enemy. Surrounded by the Persians, the Greek army realised they had 2 choices: flee and live another day, or stand and fight to the death. Most of the Greeks chose to run, but Leonidas and his 300 Spartans chose to stay and fight. For the Spartans, dying a glorious death was one of the highest honours they could achieve. This last stand was not only for glory though. If they had not stayed to attempt to hold off the Persians, the Greeks who had chosen to retreat would most probably have been killed by enemy horsemen. On the morning of the 3rd day, King Xerxes was told of his victory. However, it had not been an easy battle. The Spartan king Leonidas died in the battle, and a furious fight started around his body. The Spartans fought to the last man, and only once they had all been slain was Leonidas's body brought back to King Xerxes. It was said that, even if they were enemies, the Persians would normally honour the most courageous warriors. However, Xerxes was still so angry at the Spartans' resilience that he cut off Leonidas's head and ordered for it to be placed on a stake. In honour of Leonidas's bravery, a statue of a lion was later erected on the hill of the Spartans' last stand. Despite being victorious, the Battle of Thermopylae had shaken the Persian soldiers. They had lost thousands of men, whilst the Greek army was only in the hundreds, and, due to the Spartans' sacrifice, many of the Greek soldiers had been able to successfully retreat and regroup their army. As a result, even as Xerxes set up camp at the foot of Athens' Acropolis, the Persian army was more anxious and lacking confidence. They were more aware than ever that the Greeks did not fear them and were ready to die whilst trying to defend their land. In the end, the Battle of Thermopylae was still a loss for the Greeks, but it did give them a boost in confidence that helped them later defeat the Persians in the Battle of Plataea in 479 BCE. With the war against the Persians finally won, the Greeks were able to properly honour the sacrifice of Leonidas and his Spartans, with memorials being built and poems written that forever glorified Sparta's military strengths. This newfound respect for Sparta is noteworthy because before the war, the city was seen as no more than a bully. The Battle of Thermopylae changed opinions of Sparta for the better.
You've finished. I hope you understand the magnitude of the sacrifices made at Thermopylae. Without them, the Greek people would have surely ended as a footnote in Persian history. Is there something else you'd like to do? Farewell, visitor.